Killers of the Flower Moon is out in theaters, latest film from Martin Scorsese, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, Lily Gladstone, and Jesse Plemons. It's an adaptation of a non-fiction book under the same title written by David Gran, which I've read about a month ago and wholeheartedly recommend. Even if, like me, you're not a fan of true crime, it's a fascinating story and the prose is very good. It makes for a really quick and engrossing read. And the book details the story of the Osage murders from the 1920s and 1930s that happened in Oklahoma. The background is that the Osage were a tribe of Native Americans who were moved around forcibly by the American government from place to place until they finally ended up on a piece of land in Oklahoma which was considered completely barren, useless, nothing would grow there. But fate played a trick, and it turned out that that useless land contained massive deposits of oil underneath it. And that made the Osage the wealthiest nation on earth per capita, as each registered member of the tribe had a share of the enormous profits from the head rights. But that, of course, brought a lot of shady folk into the area. Oil barons, outlaws, degenerates trying to make a quick buck, people without careers trying to skim something off the top, and crucially white men and white women trying to marry into the easy fortunes. And then the Osage started dying in mysterious circumstances all over the place. Some of the deaths were considered suicides, some unexplained illnesses, others straight up murders that nobody would care about. Nobody seemed to bother trying to investigate, to uncover the truth and stop what was going on. Partly because, as was suspected, the local police and law enforcement was sort of in on it, partly because it was considered Indian land, so the government refused to step in, until a federal agent, Tom White, was sent to conduct an investigation for what would soon become the FBI. So the book essentially deals with the murders themselves, the investigation, and the political surroundings of the FBI itself. Now, Scorsese's initial plan was to take the FBI angle, to frame the story as an investigation thriller with DiCaprio playing White. But at some point, probably after conversations with the modern members of the Osage tribe, he realized this was maybe not the best angle, and he would risk falling into the white savior trope. So the script was rewritten to drop the political FBI stuff and focus much more on the characters of Ernest and Molly Burkhart. Ernest was a white man played by DiCaprio who married an Osage woman, Molly, played by Lily Gladstone. And in the film, the two of them sort of watch as Molly's entire family begins to slowly crumble and die off one by one around them, and the oil rights begin passing from one person to the next. And that's as much as I'm saying. I don't want to spoil the rest of the plot, especially as I think the trailer did a really good job of establishing the basics of the plot, the atmosphere, and setting certain expectations for the DiCaprio character, and then playing with these expectations and doing something interesting with them. What I will say is that this is an amazing adaptation. It's a very good example of a film that trims a lot from the source material and changes around some details and streamlines things in order to tell a story better suited for the medium, and that works out. I think the decision to focus on the Osage instead of the FBI was absolutely the correct one, as it grounds the film through the character of Molly. I also want to say it's possibly one of Scorsese's best in terms of direction. It's absolutely incredible how he uses decades of experience to tell this story in a way that keeps you on the edge of your seat, despite being 3.5 hours long. The way he keeps the momentum up with great editing and clever scene transitions is remarkable. And on the topic of transitions, there's one on the train at the beginning of the film, or one with the line from the trailer, "Can you see the wolves in this picture?" Just when you see those scenes play out, you just, as someone who loves cinema, you just think to yourself, wow, that's really neat. Scorsese also masterfully uses long, unbroken takes with the camera following the characters around, moving constantly, swirling between them, to reveal a lot of the story details and sort of world-building tidbits through pure visuals. Something that he's famously done in that really famous shot in Goodfellas, and he repeats now with the scene where DiCaprio gets off the train for the very first time. There's a great use of music to keep the momentum and the tension, especially in scenes that otherwise would perhaps feel a little bit too slow. And overall, it feels like a great director on the top of his game. But that's not everything, because crucially, the film shows that Scorsese is still growing and learning as a director and as an artist. He's still evolving. He doesn't just rely on his bag of tricks, on what he already knows how to do. That becomes most evident in his treatment of the criminal characters in the film, and is something that he began in Irishman already to a lesser extent. See, in his earlier works, Casino, Goodfellas, even The Departed, there was always an element of being cool about being a gangster, about the gangsters he depicted. He would romanticize the lifestyle a little bit, make these characters sort of larger than life, at least before their inevitable downfall. But in Killers of the Flower Moon, he's much more disillusioned about the reality of criminals. He removes the grandeur. He doesn't shy away from showing them as stupid, pathetic, greedy, weak, evil men. Especially DiCaprio's character is quite amazing as a very layered exploration of all of that, particularly because it's a massive departure for him specifically from playing generally positive protagonists. But also to the point again about Scorsese trying new things and challenging himself, there are two specific examples which I want to address. One is the opening exposition, which you would expect, again from his earlier movies, to be done as voiceover, especially because he uses voiceover in this film as well. But instead he opts for old-style newsreel montage that immediately establishes the time period. And then the epilogue at the end would normally be a couple of screens with text explaining, what happened after the story ended, when did this character die, what action was taken place, which he does instead of just boring text. He does that instead as a hokey FBI-sponsored radio show, which accomplishes three things at once. One, it drives the point home that in a lot of ways the story was swept under the rug and forgotten. Two, that true crime media, like podcasts especially, are often exploitative and done by people who have nothing to do with and no understanding of the people actually involved in these tragedies. And finally, three, he's directly admitting that he himself with this film is also complicit. He's also part of a problem. That he understands that in a better world it would be the Osage telling this story, not him. I think it's a really brilliant way to make a point, to make a statement that includes commenting on your own work as well, with a great deal of self-reflection. Now, I know I've taken a long time to gush about Scorsese himself, but it feels like it is his film to the core, and there was a lot to talk about in this context. What I also want to commend really quickly, are the performances. DiCaprio and De Niro are both giving 100% fantastic performances, and it's really a joy to watch actors of their caliber play off of each other. Even though they're both miscast in terms of age. Ernest was about 25 when the story began, and DiCaprio is 48. And Hale, even more egregiously, was in his late 40s, whereas De Niro playing him is 80 years old. But I'm willing to forgive that, just because of how good they both are. And even so, they are outshined by Lily Gladstone, who, as I said earlier, is definitely the emotional anchor, the emotional heart of the film, and it gives a powerful, memorable performance in a movie full of them. I felt a connection with her character from the first scene she's in, and a lot of that is just in the eyes and in the way she carries herself. I mean, what a star. Also, the film is absolutely full of memorable side characters. Molly's mother, the tribe leaders, the Native American FBI agent, the doctors, the henchmen, the lawyer. There's a great many people who show up for 2 or 3 scenes, and they feel incredibly real. I already mentioned the music. I will also add that the cinematography is great as well. So is the production design and the costumes that move us straight into that time period. It's all really, really well done on the technical end. All in all, I think it's a tremendously good film, and a great adaptation as well, that manages to keep the important bits, and especially the spirit of the source material, while making the story its own thing, which is a very impressive feat to pull off. And it's also living proof that at 80 years old, Martin Scorsese is still one of the best directors to ever work, and he shows no signs of slowing down.